Hello and welcome to the Rangers Rabble Academy review. Tonight I'm joined by John. How you doing, mate?
Not bad, not bad. How's yourself?
All good, thanks, mate. All good.
How was
Right,
the game?
hi. I was just about to jump over to that, obviously. Just home from the game against Sevilla. Obviously, disappointment to get knocked out of the Uefa Youth League. I think in the end it was a fair result. I know there's obviously, there'll be some people will be annoyed about some of the theatrics of the Sevilla players, but I think after all these years watching Rangers in Europe, you get kind of used to the slowing the game down and making sure that a foul's a foul with a extra wee scream in the mid-air or whatever. Is this kind of where Rangers level is in the UEFA Youth League, that we can get by, like the Swedish champions and Bulgarian champions, but you go up against, a good quality Spanish team? Is that where the next level is for Rangers to get to?
Yeah, I think it's the foundations we're laying properly. I think we've seen a lot of presentations from Rangers when I was doing my youth license, and Craig Holland went through a lot of the tournaments we'd played in Dubai and the success we'd had in those tournaments, and how they were building something that they felt was going to be 10 years in the making. We might see players then coming through the Rangers squad that would then take Rangers to higher heights in Europe. And as a result, keep feeding that into the youth teams, and the youth teams slowly progressively getting better. So we're probably exactly where we are. The first team's probably a mirror of the youth team. If we come up against a team like Sevilla, we're more than likely going to get knocked out. So I think it's pretty good what they're doing, as the foundations are there within the youth academy, that what we're trying to do is we're trying to grow at the same time. And I think, not to talk too much about the first team on this one, but it's what you're seeing Ross Wilson try to drive the first team up from what was happening at 15s and 16s. And you can just hope that more Alex Lowry's, Nathan Patterson's, Stephen Kelly start to slowly bleed into the team, and we start seeing them lifting us up, because they have had experience of winning these. I know they're not professional tournaments, they're not the UEFA tournaments by any means, but we were going and playing Ajax, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Barcelona, and winning tournaments that they were submitting their full 16s and 17s. So it wasn't like we were playing nobody. I know we've lost a few of those players like Coombs, but yeah, I think this is where we are just now. But I think there needs to be a real look at where we are going. I think our youth teams will start to get better and better as long as the coaching's consistent. I know Kelly Hearts have benefited from us losing one of our most prominent youth coaches last year, but there's plenty there.
Yeah, look, I think there's an excitement. I think, at the end of the day, it's hard to know the quality of a lot of other academies out there, because we don't really play that many games. Obviously, the Lowly League's a completely different level. But I thought one of the things that was noticeable today, and I thought it was really good from our point of view, was that maybe when we played sort of Madrid previously, it was men against boys. They basically outplayed us. They were too strong. Their quality was too strong as well. Today, I didn't feel as though the gulf was quite as big. And I don't know if that's maybe down to the competitive nature of playing in the Lowland League and playing against the physical nature of the guys in that league. So do you think that will make a difference for Rangers if we can maybe get another season at that level, even if it's like a different set of players, for instance?
Yeah, I know it's annoying. We listen to this all the time in Scottish football. I know people are frustrated with the fact that Rangers and Celtic are the people that are going to benefit from this experiment of us being in the Lowland League. But unfortunately for us, we're going to be selfish and we're going to want it, because it is going to benefit our players. It's one of the biggest complaints that you've always heard ex-pros talk about. And ex-pros run their mouth about the good old days and what used to work back in the 90s and 80s. But the one thing they were right about was reserve football, was young players playing against men definitely improved development of the players. So the quicker that these players are playing against senior pros or senior amateur footballers, the better it is for them and the better they're going to be. It just is a case, because in Spain, they play years up. They play many years up. Although it's not physical football, they tend to dictate how they want the football to go. What we need to add is that physicality, because for all we don't want a long ball, second ball football team, one of the outright benefits of British football is that we have a physical presence in our game, and it's what we can do. You can have all the technique if you want. If we've got that bit of extra desire, bit of extra physicality, we can then start competing with Sevilla. It won't be as pretty as Spanish football. I don't think it ever will be, but we can't walk away from what we do well, and what we do well is high intense physical football, and that can really, really disrupt any age group. So no, I think it's got to benefit Rangers and Celtic. It's got to continue for Rangers and Celtic, even if it's at the dismay of everyone else. But when have we ever cared about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's been interesting. I mean, I was actually saying to a few of the guys at today's game that Hibs have basically come out now with, I think it's Steve Keane, who's basically saying that next season they're going to be having a development team and that they're in the main going to be playing against teams from England, like their under-23 teams. So maybe teams like Man United, Newcastle, Arsenal, maybe like your Huddersfields, Fulhams, etc. Obviously, Rangers did that a few years ago. The kind of best versus best that you spoke about earlier when we played in Holland, we played in Germany, we played in Belgium, etc. We played a lot of these games, which was really beneficial for us, I felt, because the standard of the quality was higher. To me, it feels like the reserve league's dead. I don't know if we'll ever see the reserve league back like it was, as you're talking about earlier. It feels like clubs are kind of going down their own routes. And I think Hearts have come out recently and said that they're potentially going to be putting any players over the age of 18 maybe out to like a West of Scotland league or maybe to the Lowland league, or depending on the quality of the player, obviously they might go out to League One, League Two. So they're basically saying that there's not going to be a reserve team there for that either by the sounds of it. So yeah, it sounds like unless the SFA step in and do something, it sounds like every club's just gone about for themselves. And for all Rangers and Celtic have took a lot of criticism for doing what they've done. It sounds like many of the other clubs round about us are now thinking we need to do the same thing, because development after the age of 18 in Scotland is now it's just hitting a wall. You know, there's no way out. There's no reserve league. So what do clubs do? Do they just release players who are not good enough at 18 because there's really no structure in place to keep them? I mean, what is the next step for that, John?
I honestly don't know. I do like the thing that Hibs have said. I think Steve Keane's probably a very good person in a very good position to really analyse what an academy should be doing. He's been over in Spain with academy side. He's been academy director out in Australia. He's been academy director at Blackburn, so he's seen it work down in the Premier League when they were there. Steve Keane's probably a very good barometer of what needs to happen with youth players, and I think I'm really happy. Steve Keane done my license, and I'm delighted that he's back in a youth role, because I think that's where he belongs. I think he is someone who should be pushing youth academies forward, and I think he knows what's needed. So if he's doing that, I suspect that will be something a lot of other people will be looking to do, because I think it's probably the most sensible way of doing it in a cost efficient manner. And I guess that's what it's going to all come down to. The more coaches we have that are more qualified, the less volunteer positions you get within your academy, and the more money you're going to have to pay. So these people have to find out a way to make these youth players profitable as quick as possible, in the way that Rangers and Celtic have done, the way that Aberdeen look like they're going to do with Calvin Ramsey. There is examples of it working. They just need to start seeing it really, really work at a good value. We need to see everyone in Scotland start selling £1 million footballer from their youth academy to actually start seeing them put money back in and start thinking of ways they can invest. Because until it starts, I mean, Rangers have just literally just started it. Like, if we think of where we are and our infrastructure, we've just sold our first big academy.
Yeah.
I know McGregor, I know Hutton went for good money, but that Nathan Patterson is the first thing that we've really invested a full structure in
Yeah.
what we wanted our academy to look like and what we wanted it to give back. And he's the first of what I think will now be a streamline of Rangers players doing the same, and clubs are just going to have to copy it. There's no money in Scottish football, so the right
No.
way to go is find a way to make your academy profitable. There's no
Yeah.
money.
No, it's 100% true, and it's one of the discussions that I would love to get more people on, in terms of maybe like somebody from, the SFA, maybe somebody from another club, so that we can discuss different ideas, because it does feel like Scottish football's kind of came to a head in terms of youth football, and something needs to change, whether it's like Craig Mulholland and Steve Keane and several other people within Scottish football sitting around a table and deciding, what is the next step for the clubs? What's the next step for academy football? Because you feel like that needs to change if we are going to move forward. I'll just look over some of the previous games that we've had this month as well. We had a friendly game against Cowdenbeath to give some players minutes, really. It was a 2-0 victory. Alex Lowry and Robbie Ure with those goals. That was a game where Kai Kennedy and Jake Hastie get some valuable minutes as well. Cali Braves, that was a Lowland League game. It finished 2-2. I think Alex Lowry from memory scored a last-minute penalty for us to get a 2-2 draw. With the game against Civil Service Strollers, which the run on the pitch that day was certainly interesting. it was like that, like the pitch goes sweat like that from top to bottom. It was different, shall we say? But I have to say, like, sort of really nice people, very very helpful. Couldn't do enough for you at the game. Rangers won 1-0 thanks to Juan Alegria. That was like one of maybe like 3 shots the entire 90 minutes. It wasn't one of those thrillers, to be honest with you. And we had a 2-1 defeat at Carrington against Man United. I think it was officially Man United's under 23s, but I think there was quite a few younger players in that age group as well. But I mean, even just going back to what we were talking about there quickly before we kind of move on to Alex Lowry and Leon King and things like that. See, like those kind of games against Man United, I mean, is that the type of barometer that Rangers are looking to be tested against? Clearly, Man United's budget is monumental compared to ours when, we've just took one of their young players on loan who cost like 18, 19 million pounds up front with a view to another 20 million in top. Is that like where we need to look to, or do you think there's other academies in smaller countries who don't have the same like sort of budget as these big clubs that we can look at, that we can improve upon, that maybe we can go and look at?
I think for Man United being an example, as Rangers and Celtic have an astronomical pool.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a player, doesn't matter where they're from, if they're anywhere near the central belt, Rangers and Celtic can pull them in. That's just the reality. So although Man United have billions and billions of pounds to structure an academy, make Carrington Park this massive thing, we do have an amazing academy, and we do have the same pool. In Scotland, we have the same pool. The only issue we do have is England's not a million miles away. So it's also easy for these players to get pinched and moved down to Diggs and moved down to Everton, moved down to Liverpool. You'll see them all these boys that come to Rangers, you'll hear them all. They've had summer trials at Newcastle. All these Premier League clubs will have been sniffing around. But I just think it's getting them in and see just having all this different variety of stuff. I've seen a couple of things. I can't remember if it was us. Was it us versus Dundee United? We done a couple of different rules.
Yes.
Going into games.
Yeah.
English football's been doing this for ages. I know... who was it that was talking? I can't for the life of me. It was someone from Tottenham, and they were talking about they'd done different things during games. So they had played a couple of friendlies with their academies where they had played 10v11 for one half in their favour and 10v11, 11v10 against them in the other favour. Just different things to try and get different mentality switch. Just little things, testing people. I think variation's a key for youth footballers. I think this is why we're trying to rip it up a little bit. I don't think having a 17s, 18s, 19s, 20s, and 23s and just having you move through the age groups and playing static games, playing against the same people as well for maybe 5-6 seasons as you all move through. It's about variation and testing them and getting them different things. And I think that is what we are trying to do. And I really liked that clip of the Dundee United game. And for people who haven't seen it, go and find it. It was just things like rolling free kicks, kick-ins, just to get different reaction times so there wasn't a slow and delay. I just really liked that. I thought it was really impressive. I think that's the way you're going to see your footballers improve. So as long as it's like that, as long as a variation of opponents there, I think it would be really good. They just can't stagnate, and I think that's what happened. I think that is actually what happens in English football. I think they have the structured academies all the way up to 23s, and then you sometimes get a who was the boy Aberdeen had from Newcastle? One of the Longstaff brothers.
Oh, yeah.
And he's criticised the standard of football. and you're like, well, you used to see the Aberdeen team you might have played with 2 years ago, because Stephen Glass Aberdeen team tries and plays football, so I don't know what you would have seen a few weeks ago. So I think English football's the one that's stagnating. I think we'll maybe get the right idea if we keep having this. The Lowland League's obviously beneficial to Rangers and Celtic only, but as long as we are doing the different tournaments, trying different things, as long as it never gets boring for them, we will see 19, 20-year-olds for Rangers and Celtic. We don't really care about us just now, coming through with different qualities, and they'll be able to go out and loan as well. And I think that's the one worry. It's trying to get that balance right of getting someone out to get football on loan, but also making sure they're taken care of in the way that you want them to be taken care of. Because you don't want them to go out and be shut off and be shocked when they go and play for a League One side with a manager who does want to play not necessarily long ball football, direct football, picking up second balls, and it can create a lot of bad habits instead of teaching a lot of stuff you wanted them to learn. And I think that's the problem. I think there is a lack of trust with us giving people out to loan to other players. So I think it would just be good. It's hard because you don't want to. Obviously, other teams aren't going to be out to benefit Rangers and Celtic. They just aren't. But,
yeah, of course.
And you raised a really good point there. The these discussions do happen. Craig Mulholland's pally with loads of people at the SFA. That's why he comes on and does the Uefa licensed courses and presentations, because he is pally and they do talk all the time and they try and think of ways that they can improve. The problem is, it's two big horses trying to improve something that they know will, in the end, make them even further advanced than the other teams, and nobody wants to buy in. Now that is the reality, is we have this block because in the end we're going to get the better pool of players, and it's going to create an even bigger gap, and you're not going to get people to vote for that. So that is where we get to the sticking point, is how can you sell them on something that will help everyone when in the end it's probably going to benefit us even further again.
Yeah, it's interesting with Craig. Craig's the sort of guy that he talks so well, and you could be outside with a rain jacket on and it's pouring the rain, and he could tell you the sun's out, and you would believe the sun's out because he's good at telling you stuff. And I mean, Craig might listen to this and probably kill himself laughing, but it's true. Craig's the sort of guy, he speaks so well. He's a certain way of doing things that just seems to work. And also, we've got a lot of time for Craig. You know, he's been so helpful with us over the years. One of the things you spoke about earlier on was the loans. That's something that's kind of changed a little bit in January. Josh McPake, he obviously went from one club in League One back to League Two again. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out at Morecambe. He's ended up going back to League Two with Tranmere Rovers. Chris McKee's went to Lingfield on loan. Chris will probably see out his contract with Lingfield and might end up there on a permanent basis potentially. Kieran Wright, obviously, he didn't really play in the first half of the season because he was too old for the Lowland League. And, you know, he's obviously not like the second choice goalkeeper within the first team. So it felt like it was the right move for Kieran to go to Dumbarton. He's going to play some games between now and the end of the season. And Kai Kennedy was on the move again. Obviously, he was with Dunfermline. Now he's with Hamilton Accies. So good luck to all the guys. I think a few of those guys will be playing tomorrow night. So hopefully we keep getting some first team games. We'll shift on to Alex Lowry. He's obviously the kind of beacon at the moment, along with Leon. What did you make of Alex in the Stirling Albion game coming off the bench? What kind of impact did you think he made on that game?
It's actually really interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure I can hunt these presentations down if you haven't seen them at any point. I can't remember if it was Craig or if it was Graham Murray at the time that done the specific presentation, but a lot of the Rangers terminology is drilled into Alex Lowry. Play through and stay through is something they talk about all the time with attacking midfielders. I think in the first team, Haji's probably the greatest example of it. If you break a line, you do not come back, and that's what I noticed. That's what stood out massively on Alex Lowry. Everything was forward. It was never coming back at all. If that ball was played forward into him, he done everything he could to make sure he was still going forward with the ball. And I think that's what happened. There was a big drop in possession-based football about 10, 15 years ago when you got young players coming through and all they seemed to do was pass side and backwards. They'd have really high stat numbers, but nothing would develop from it. And it was Graham Murray, I'm sure it was, presenting it, and he was talking about how they were trying to get all their attacking players to play through lines and stay through them, never come back. If you broke the midfield, you never came back at all. And that's what I seen in Alex Lowry. It just struck me when I was watching the highlights that was what I could keep hearing it. I could keep hearing Graham Murray saying that in the presentation. Play through and stay through, play through and stay through. And I was like, that is him. That's clearly a message that has sat in and has resonated. And then even in my mind, if I think of Nathan Patterson as well, he's not attacking because he's watched James Tavernier or because of what Gerrard's brought in. He's come through a full academy where the whole point has been stop going back. You need to get forward as quick as possible and keep going forward and keep attacking. So it's nice to actually see, because you see a lot of these presentations and you see a lot of talk until you see the results of it, especially in the first team. It's really hard to judge. I think seeing Alex Lowry, it was really nice to see what might actually be coming through within our academy. Not specifically him, because he would be very early. From the plans that they said, he'd be very early in this adaptation. Nathan Patterson's very early in this journey. We're still talking 5 seasons from when we might get 2 or 3 all of a sudden landed in the first team who all have the attributes all at the same time. So it was just really exciting. It's been a long time. I think we say this all the time. Just feels Patterson was almost there, but unfortunately you can't choose which world class players come through your club at which position. And we have our captain who contributes 1 in 3 games, either to a goal or an assist, and a young boy's just not going to push him out the team.
No.
You're just unlucky. It's like Scotland getting stuck with Tierney and Robertson all at the same time.
Yeah.
Just your luck where you get players. If Nathan Patterson had been a right winger, Nathan Patterson would be in that team every week because we've been crying out for one.
No, and that's the thing about football, innit? It's sometimes maybe just getting the luck at the right time. Maybe somebody's out injured, you come in, you make your position almost impossible to be removed. But unfortunately, with Nathan, Tav just doesn't really pick up many injuries. He's usually these stats are off the charts really for a right back. I mean, it's obscene what Tav does kind of week on week. I think even just looking at Alex, the one thing with Alex, even if you don't talk about the technical stuff, which obviously he's a great technical player, he's got that, I don't know what you would call it, it is probably arrogance to a point because he knows he's good. Like, he knows he can do things on a football pitch that other players can't. He has an ability to find space on a football pitch, which obviously, as you've spoken about, is something they're kind of drilled into, finding the space, getting forward. And then I thought the biggest thing from that game was his composure to finish the goal.
Yeah.
A lot of players would maybe get in that position and maybe get a bit flustered potentially, especially when it's your debut. It might seem like the kind of rabbit in the headlights moment. But with Alex, it was like, no, I'm in a good position. I'll just roll it past the goalkeeper. And I think that's just like the class at Alex. Even today on that pitch, which wasn't the best as we kind of spoke about, it's just his way of playing. He wants to get the ball down. He wants to take players on. And even though the ball's bobbling all over the place, he's still trying because in his mind, that's just the way that he plays. It's the way that we want him to play. And so even on that surface, that shows you the mentality, Alex. Nothing changes. Whether it's AstroTurf, a perfect grass pitch, a bobbly pitch, a quagmire, which that pitch will probably be in a few weeks' time. I would imagine Alex will still try to play the same way. And to me, that's important because the mindset's there. So you just want to keep playing in that manner. And I'm excited for Alex. I think he is genuinely somebody that's going to excite the supporters. But as I always kind of ask, I want people to be patient with him. Maybe it was the wrong call to take him out against Ross County. Maybe he should have started. People will argue that point. Should he have played against Celtic? People will argue that point. These are the things about football that you love and that people will always question. Because Alex had played so well against Lowry, did he deserve to miss out next time around?
Yeah.
But we'll quickly move on to Leon. Leon's obviously another one. He came on against Stirling Albion. What do you see Leon's future at Rangers? Do you think it is as a centre back, which is where he's played mainly in his career, or do you think Rangers might try and kind of utilise him in a different place, maybe as a like a number 6 sitting in front of the back four, or do you not think that's what they'll do?
I think that's maybe where you would want him to start bedding in games.
Right.
If I was seeing games out, I would never ever make a change with my centre half in any game.
Right, okay.
But if we're at home in a Scottish League game and we're 3-0 up at Ibrox and Leon King's on the bench, I'm probably not taking up a centre half to bring him on, just in case. I think there's a lot of exposure. I guess it depends on the opponent as well. But if I could get him minutes and have him in that defensive mid, you're doing a very similar role. You're just getting the ball deep. You're trying to break lines. You're trying to progress moves forward. You're doing all the same things. But if you make any mistakes, you're not costing goals.
No.
And then you build up to that. And the other benefit he's got here is, although we all want to see young players breaking into a team, centre halves have a longevity above everyone else in the football pitch because they do less running. So your centre halves are still young at 22, 23. If he can get as much football as he can at the first team level over the next 3 seasons, I would be wanting him to be pushing when he's 21, 22, 23 to be our centre half. That's where I would see him. But he could come a lot quicker than that. I think that's, when you look at how Danny Wilson was hindered, and that was just because he had, although Davy was definitely an aging centre half, but we still had a centre half there who was professional and going to keep his place out from him. It cost Danny Wilson in the end. But I think you just need to be patient with these boys. I think these boys know more than ever now that there is pathways into the first team now. I think we're starting to see that in Rangers. I think these boys know. But that's what I would see. I would like to see him come on, even in holding mid, just a couple of times, just to get him on there, get him a feel of the ball, get him in front of crowds. If he makes mistakes, going for tackles, he's got the luxury of having a back four behind him. I think that's what I would want to do with a centre half. I wouldn't want to rush him in there just in case, because I think that's what people don't accept anymore, and they don't understand. Is sometimes that one thing can kill someone. That a one mistake can kill someone's career. Like it literally can be, if it's that bad at youth level, or if it's that higher stakes game that he comes on and makes a mistake that costs us points in a title race because people have been injured and we've not had anyone else. That'll stick with you, and this is what coaches are always trying to do with the youth players. They're trying to protect them as much as they can. It's what Gerrard did with Patterson, even though we wanted to see him more.
Yeah.
They know what they have to do. They know how fragile the mind of a professional footballer is now, especially a youth footballer coming up. It's why they try and protect them so much. It will just be patience. I know we want to see them all. I think Lowry's maybe a different example because he plays in a forward position, and you can probably allow people to have inconsistent performances and get away with it because you don't notice as much. But I mean, I like both of them. I think there's like it's what you kind of touched on. There's like an era of garrulous, and it was the same with Patterson coming through. There just seems to be a real, and I think it's married to everything. I think it's married to Scotland making a Euros, seeing so many Scottish footballers down south excelling in the Premier League, seeing Man City's academy stealing two of Kilmarnock's players, Bayern Munich stealing academy players from here. I think there's just an era of garrulousness with Scottish people now, is that they are progressing, they are more confident. Alex Rowley doesn't think that he's not a good midfielder. Alex Rowley thinks he's going to be one of the best midfielders that Scotland's ever produced, the same way Billy Gilmour did, the same way Nathan Patterson does. It's what they believe now. They don't believe that, oh, I'm Scottish, I might make a World Cup once. They all think they're going to be world-class players. Billy Gilmour said in an interview when he first joined Chelsea that he believed he was going to be the best midfielder in the world. He wasn't saying that to blow smoke. These people are coming through Rangers academies believing that this is what they're going to become. They believe they're going to become the best midfielders in the world. And I think you see that now in the players. I think that's the confidence you actually see coming through. And like I said, I think it'll be 5 years before we see it. But I think at some point we will see a generation of footballers come through within our academy, and we'll see 3 or 4 land in the first team at once. And it'll all be from what we're seeing at 16s, 18s, 19s, and 20s just now. And it'll be 22, 23, 24-year-olds, and they'll all just be in the first team. And you won't even realise you've had to wait all those seasons of them making 5 or 6 appearances, and then you'll have them in there at one time. That's what will happen for us.
I think with Bully, like you could see the potential in Bully even for a young age. You could just tell that it was something special, and it is great to see Bully down in the EPL doing well. Hopefully, once Nathan kind of fully settles into Everton's way of playing, because clearly that does take time, and he's leaving home for the first time. He's going to be in a new area. Got to give the guy time to settle in. Hopefully, Nathan over the next 6 months to a year really shows why Everton paid that much money for him. Moving on, just kind of finally to the under-18s. It's been quite a quiet month actually for the 18s, really, since we were last on the pod. A 4-1 victory against Aberdeen in the league. Goals from Rory Wilson and a hat-trick from Darren McInally. Darren barely passes a halfway line, so for him to score a hat-trick is pretty freakish, to be honest. Then we played Aberdeen a week later. It was a 4-1 victory against them again in the Cup. Robbie Ewer, Greg Allen, Rory Wilson and Tyler Pasnick. So that was a really good performance. That's Rangers through to the semi-finals to play Hibs. At the moment, the Scottish FA website has it down as, I think it's Friday the 4th of March at Easter Road, but I'm not so sure that's 100% guaranteed. These things, like most things in youth football, change a lot. So if anything does change, we'll try and let people know, whether that's on the Twitter page or via the Rabble or whatever. But at the moment, it's penciled in for the 4th of March at Easter Road. But as I say, I think that might change. And the most recent 18s game is a 4-2 defeat to Hibs. Hibs, I think, are still undefeated this season in the 18s league. They look as though they're probably going to win it unless something catastrophic happens. Although I think they've got something ridiculous like 7 games in hand. So it could be that there could be a burnout factor at some point, which might affect them. But, when you've got that many games in hand, and I think they're only like 7 points off of Rangers, if it's even that many, I would need to double check the league table. But yeah, they've just got a lot of games in hand to play. They've still to play Rangers twice at Auchenhowie. We've actually played our 2 away games against Hibs. So you could argue that if Rangers won the 2 home games, it maybe makes it a little bit tighter kind of thing. Next up for the A teams is Hamilton Accies away on Friday night at Hamilton Stadium. I don't know what it's actually called now. It's quite a few name changes, isn't it? At 7 p.m. So if anybody's in the local area in Hamilton, 7 p.m. Friday night, Hamilton under 18s against Rangers under 18s. And next up for the B team is East Stirlingshire on Saturday. If that pitch doesn't improve, then it would be a worry, if I'm totally honest. I think that if we have some rain over the next few days, I would be worried that game could go, because I think Rangers had obviously worked really hard on that pitch to get it up and running for today. And I think, as one of my mates said today, I'm not so sure Rangers will put the same time into it for these Stirlingshire games. So it might be one of those ones where check that out on Friday or Saturday to make sure that the game is still on. Just a wee last quick point, obviously, before we kind of go. What's like the aims for the rest of the season, John, for guys like Alex and Leon? Is it just about trying to get more minutes on the pitch for the first team, really?
I think that's it. See, as long as they're training, I know they're both considered first team players. So see, as long as they're training with the first team. I mean, I I don't think any Rangers fans actually even remotely over-egged the impact that an Aaron Ramsey's going to have. If Alex Lowry can take anything, 5% of what Aaron Ramsey's learned in his career over the next 6 months, Alex Lowry will have become a better footballer for it. Soak up everything from Steve Davis before he retires. Just get everything. He's got such a good mix of midfielders at different times of their career, sitting there with different experience, that he's there. And Leon King's the same. Like we have really good centre halves at that club. He's got McGregor, who's still there and behind him, so you'll know what a demanding goalkeeper's like. Things like Annan. If we can get past Annan, fingers crossed we should. And if we can then get another favourable draw to a lower league team at home, there's minutes there again for you. And that's what you've got to hope for. You've got to hope for that there's minutes involved in easy cup games. That requires a lot of luck. That requires us to not have a cup shot. It requires you to get lower league teams that they can play against and keep people fit. But look at the size of our squad as well.
Of course.
Like all these players need minutes. And right now, we've got a situation where I don't even know how Stephen Davis gets a game. I don't know how Sakala gets minutes, and every time he comes on, he seems to grab a goal. We've just taken Diallo. I don't know how he gets minutes with the team that we've got just now. There's a lot of moving parts within this team where I don't know where they get minutes. That's why I think we need to get through on Saturday and get another favourable Scottish Cup draw, and that's probably as many minutes as they're going to get, unless the title swings astronomically in our favour, where we have success and games to play with nothing to play for. Unless we've got that scenario, I don't see how they get really any league minutes with like players. People don't seem to recognise this, but everyone that's involved in football know this. Every player needs to get a certain amount of minutes. Like, I don't know if you've seen it on Sky, for example. You see Borna Barisic at full time doing his full length runs because he needs to get his yards in, so he's on the same level as everyone else. All these players need certain minutes to stay in the right zones all the time. So it's all well and good saying, what are we bringing Davis on for when Lowry's there? What are we doing this when that's there? And you go, but Stephen Davis is somebody we're more than likely to rely on if we have a shortage of midfielders that's going to start a game. So he needs those minutes in his legs. It's just a balancing act all the time. Scottish Cup, it needs to be Scottish Cup.
Right. No, I do agree. I think for the two young lads, hopefully they can get on. Maybe Alex might start against Aaron. I mean, like, we don't know these things. Obviously, the manager.
I think he will.
I think there's a possibility for him. I do think there's a chance. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully, the East Stirlingshire game's on at 12 o'clock. I'll get to that on Saturday, then back home to watch. Hopefully, Alex gets some minutes against Aaron. Just want to say thanks very much to everybody for tuning in. I say we'll let everybody know if anything changes with regards to that Scottish FA Youth Cup semi-final tie. I appreciate all the comments recently and all the questions. I'll try and get back to people as quickly as I can. Look forward to you tuning in next time as well, guys. Thanks very much, and see you all again soon.